Good morning. What would you do if you get a surprise trip to Japan and all of the sudden your trip to Japan, your trip to Asia, your surprise vacation turns into a missionary travel and you end up preaching to lost souls? This is the story of my friend Adolfo Pichardo. We're going to dive into that. And I'm so excited. We're going to talk about all things ministry. We're going to talk about what happened there. And among other things, we're going to be reacting at the end also to a crazy video where a minister, she said that empathy could be toxic. So you have to stay till the end to check that out. Adolfo, how are you feeling today, my friend?
I'm feeling good, man. God bless you. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. It's been a minute. It's been what? 5 days, 6 days since I saw you?
Maybe less than that.
Maybe less than that?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So tell me, how does this trip to Japan happen?
Well, my wife wanted to do a surprise trip. We never got to experience our honeymoon. And then on top of that, my birthday was coming up. And so to explain the whole honeymoon scenario, my wife and I got married in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
In November, we got married through the court system. She's originally from Georgia. So after she graduated college with her master's, went down there, signed the papers, brought her up to Rhode Island. And then about 9 months later, in August of 2019, we had our big wedding. And then we planned our honeymoon for March of 2020. And then in March of 2020, COVID happened and we wasn't able to take our trip to Peru. That's where we was going to spend our honeymoon. And so since then, we've been to a ton of trips. You know, we've been to the Bahamas, we've been to Mexico, we've been to Canada, we've been to Dominican Republic, we've been to different states, but we never had the opportunity to experience our trip together, just her and I. Now we have 2 boys, Ezra and Luca, who are 4 and 2 years old. And so she said, look, I'm gonna surprise you with the trip. And I did not know where we were gonna go until the day before the trip. And she ended up surprising me with Japan.
That's insane. So what was your first reaction when you landed there? You're like, oh, well, when you got to the airport, I'm assuming at the airport you already knew, like, okay, this is the destination. What was your reaction?
I don't know if you could see the smile on my face, bro. She told me the night we were packing, I got emotional. I didn't cry, but I did get emotional. And I was just like, oh my God, we're going to Japan. And, I started packing all my anime shirts because that's what I was going to wear when I was going to be out there.
You were ready.
Yeah, I was super ready. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. First and foremost, my thought was on the flight because I knew it was going to be a long flight. And so the flight was from Boston to Montreal, which was a little over an hour. And then from Montreal straight to Tokyo, which is a little over 13 hours. I didn't know if I was going to be able to handle it. And it was smooth, man. It wasn't bad at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, shout out to the wife, shout out to Rosa. Really got my boy emotional in Japan. All right, so you're in Japan. You are a man that likes to read books. He's a man that likes to be informed. And then you told me a little something about how you are in your honeymoon and now you are like preaching?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, a couple of days before we went on the trip, I was on YouTube. I like to use YouTube as a university. And there was a video that I stumbled upon that was talking about Christianity in Japan and how Christians only make up 1% of the population of the country. And then Tokyo, most people don't know, Tokyo is actually the largest city in the world with 37 million people that are residents there that are not counting any tourists. And so the YouTuber, he was interviewing one particular pastor, Pastor Masa from Awakening Tokyo. And I was just extremely intrigued. I loved the video. I loved the content. And I was just like, man, if I ever had the opportunity to visit Japan, I would love to visit that church one day. And so when my wife surprised me with the Japan trip, literally 2 days after I saw that video, I was like, well, there's my opportunity. I'm going to be there for a Sunday. I'm going to visit the church. And so when I visited the church, it was an amazing experience. Very different from here in the United States in the sense of, yeah, the presence of God is there, but they're 13 hours ahead. So when a lot of my friends were sleeping,
You were worshiping.
I was worshiping God in Japanese language, which is amazing with Japanese folks. But what really caught my attention was the church was in a cafe. It's not like here where you see a church in every corner. Over there, you see a lot of temples and shrines, but not necessarily churches. And so the church was in a cafe. The cafe was 2 floors. And so the main sanctuary was on the first floor, which was really the 4th floor. And then the 5th floor was the overflow room, which each floor could fit about like 50 people. And there were only like 4 or 5 seats. So your seat was the floor, right? Which really humbled me because it was literally packed shoulder to shoulder. And people sat on the floor with joy because they were listening to the word of God.
So there was no stage. There was no lights, no fancy LED screens.
They had their projector for the lyrics. They had their drums and their instruments, but it wasn't extravagant like what you see here in the United States. It's like what you see is what you got. And it was more about God. It wasn't, it wasn't about performance. It's just like we came here to worship the Lord. Which was beautiful to see in another country. But while I was there, I got to build relationships, got to build connections, got to connect with the pastor. And what they do is every Wednesday and Friday, they evangelize to the population. And I got invited. To go on a Wednesday. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna be doing some street preaching. If you want to come, we would love to have you join us, and we could evangelize in the street." So that's how that door opened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Evangelism. So before we go into that part, can you talk to me about how was the experience of worshiping in a different culture? Because I don't think I'm so used to my culture, even here in the United States. I'm so surrounded by Dominicans that I can lose track of how different cultures actually experience God, because we don't worship the same way. Your culture influences the way you express and you worship God. Is there anything that you can share with the audience about, like, culturally, some nuggets that you notice in your trip there that you were like, oh wow, like this is really shocking and really different than from the States?
Yeah, it's a beautiful reminder that Christianity is not a European religion. It's not a Middle Eastern religion. It's not a Latino religion. It's a global one, right? Because I was there worshiping with other Japanese folk and Chinese folks that were also within the church. Number 2, that, for example, the preacher of that day wasn't even Pastor Masa, the pastor of Awaken in Tokyo. It was Pastor Daniel out of Hong Kong. And how Christianity there is growing so rapidly that Christianity is not going to be known as a European religion, but more of an Asian one, because there's so many.
Just by the sheer numbers.
Oh, just by the sheer numbers.
Yeah.
And so it's a reminder of that, because we have this misconception that Christianity started in Europe, which is not the case at all. It was actually in Africa before it was even in Europe. But it's a global religion because the headquarters always moved. It went from Israel to Egypt to Ethiopia to India to Europe to the US to Latin America. So it was that beautiful reminder that I saw there. Not only that, just I'm so accustomed hearing worship songs in English and in Spanish. So I'm like, oh no, we got that in Japanese too. And was able to pick up what song was what, simply because of the rhythm and the cadence of the music and the melody. Yeah. So it was beautiful.
That is insane. That is insane. One of the things that I find surprising is when I've been able to experience other cultures, is that even your personality, how you approach people, like I don't know, like did you go to in that church like hugging everybody and saying what's up and dabbing people?
I went into the church first. Soon as I got in there, you have to take off your shoes.
Okay, see, those are the things that I'm like,
Right.
what?
So right before I went into the sanctuary or to the church or to the cafe, whatever it is that you want to call it, because it's all of those things, you got to take off your shoes. And yeah, you could shake hands, but they bow. So I was also bowing a lot too, which is also something beautiful.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, so how do you make that connection? How do they know that you're there and tell you, like, do you want to come preach in the streets? with us? How did that happen? Because you were just visiting Japan, and all of a sudden you're part of the evangelism team.
Yeah. Well, before I went to go visit the church, I messaged the pastor and I let him know who am I, where I'm from, and then from there, just started conversing with the other members. And so they were like, "Hey, a pastor that's out here that wants to evangelize, let's go," you know. And they knew that I wasn't doing it for the photo ops, right? Because what ends up happening is people, they go to another country and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm evangelizing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that for the photo op," not necessarily because they care for the people.
Yeah.
But here, I'm not getting a spotlight. There's no camera on me. I'm not on a stage. I'm not on the altar. I'm literally in the streets evangelizing. So they could tell right away that, hey, he's for the people, right? And so that invitation was, man, it was such a humbling and great experience, and I'm glad that they extended it to me. So that's how we just made that connection. To make a long story short.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, walk me through it. Tell you, I'm assuming, to meet up at some place, and then walk the people through the instruction that you got.
Well, it was funny that day. It was a Wednesday. It was raining.
Yeah.
So I messaged one of the leaders of the church by the name of Russell, who's actually from Zimbabwe. Shout out to Russell. So I messaged Russell. I'm like, "Hey man, it's raining. I don't know if you're gonna be canceling it and just doing it on Friday. I'll still show up on Friday. Just let me know." He's like, "Oh no, we're meeting at the church. I'll see you at 5:00 or
Raining.
4:30. Raining." So I get to the church, no umbrella. And then he says, "All right, we're going to be going to Ueno Park. We're going to evangelize there." So I'm like, "Okay, we're going to evangelize in the rain at a park. There's no one going to be outside." And we get to the park and it's packed. Okay. Everybody was outside. And there was a group of 10 of us. And they partnered me with one of my buddies, Noah. I'm 6'3". Noah's 6'9". They partnered me with Noah because Noah is originally from the United States, like me. He's from Austin, Texas.
Oh my God.
And so they're like, "Hey, the two of you are an American. So like the two of you are American. So you'll get along right away." And they're like, "Okay, we're gonna split up into groups." They're like, "Pastor Adolfo, we don't have any tracts to give you. No Bibles. You're not gonna have a translator. You just have the Holy Spirit. So we need you to pick a section and go and let the Lord use you." And so I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "No tracks, no translator? You know, how many people in Japan know English?"
Yeah.
And I always envision myself preaching or speaking in Asia. It's always been a dream of mine. It's something that the Lord has placed in my heart. It's something I always wanted to do. I didn't think it was going to be in those type of conditions. And it's a beautiful reminder that just because something is God's will doesn't mean that it's going to be convenient, right? Sometimes you have to go through struggle in order to fulfill the will of God over your life. And so when we were in the park, you know, Noah and I, we were just praying because his Japanese wasn't that great. And I was like, "All right, Lord, give us a strategy to really minister to the people and to evangelize as best as we can." And boom, after that prayer, the Lord gave us a strategy right there. So essentially, we were going up to people and we would just start off the conversation like, "Hey, do you speak English? Do you know any English?" And if they said no, we kept it moving. There was no need to try to interpret what the other person was saying. But the moment that they said yes, then we would engage in conversation. And man, we met people from all over the world in Japan because, like I said, there's a lot of tourists there. So yes, we spoke with folks from Japan, but we also spoke with folks from China, from Hong Kong, from Shanghai, folks from Australia, folks from Israel, and an individual from Germany. So it was a phenomenal experience.
So I've known you for quite a bit, and although you were in another country, street evangelism, I want to use the right word, but for the lack of a better term, it comes natural to you. You enjoy it.
Yeah.
I will never forget when we were playing basketball at that park, and then you left this poor kid wondering what was his purpose in life.
Yeah.
Asking all the existential questions. Why am I here? Which was great to see because unfortunately we have a culture right now that's driven by titles and driven by status and not so much of the work. So I believe for you, that was an advantage, that it was something completely foreign other than the country.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, once again, you're in a different culture, in a different place. You don't know nobody there.
Yeah.
You are with this Texan kid that you just met. And thank God God gave me a strategy. Like, let me just preach to the people I can actually communicate with. But how was that approach? Because here, in a way, is easier to just say, hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about God, about the Bible, blah, blah, blah. But if you're in a touristic place, I have to assume that your approach has to be different because people can dismiss you right away. So walk me through that. Like, I'm in the streets, you're coming up to me, you asking me if I speak English, and then...
Yeah. And so before I get into that, honestly, street evangelism is my favorite thing to do. I prefer that to teach in a church. I prefer that over preaching in a church.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Street evangelism, if you have me do that, I could do that all day. And it's not necessarily me with a microphone and preaching at people. It's literally going one-on-one and having conversations. And so the greatest thing about a street evangelism for me is that, or the strategy that I use is that you have to be sincere in your questioning, right? Yeah, there's an ultimate goal at the end of the day, but you also have to be genuine in the conversation because if not, people are going to read it right away.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
I was truly curious about what is the main religion in Japan. So I would go up to people and I'm like, hey, I'm a tourist. I'm from the United States. This is my first time in Japan, right? All true. And I'm like, I see a lot of shrines and temples everywhere I go in Japan. True. What is the main religion? True curiosity. Like I really wanted to know. And they would tell me like, oh, Shinto and Buddhism are the main beliefs here or the main practices that we follow here in Japan. Cool. Can you tell me more about it? Because Buddhism, yeah, may be a little bit more mainstream here in the United States, but not Shinto, right? So it's just like, what is that? Can you explain it to me? And so they would explain it to me, so on and so forth. And then I would begin to tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm in the United States. There's literally a church on every block. And you could tell right away whether or not it's a church for the most part. And if it's just like a normal factory building, they'll at least have a church sign out in the front. And so I'm like, there's a church on every other block. I was like, yeah, I don't see churches at all. Like, what do you think about Christianity? And from there, it would open up the door where they would tell you like, oh, I think this, or honestly, I don't know anything about it. And I would begin to explain. And I'm like, hey, I'm actually a pastor from the United States. And, the main focus of Christianity is this. And so I would begin to talk about the gospel. I would begin to talk about Jesus. What are your thoughts of God, the creator, the universe? I would just ask questions. But the main point of me asking questions is that I want them to ask me questions.
Yes.
Because they could give me answers and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, people tend to hide behind their answers. But it's very difficult to hide behind your questions.
Yeah.
And so I like to put it this way. When I ask questions, you can hear my heart. But when you ask questions, I hear yours. And from that point, I'm able to gather pressure points. I'm like, okay, this area is sensitive to this particular individual. So I would love to talk about one engagement that I had with a kid from Germany.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I go up to a young man. He was 24 years old by the name of Tim. I'm like, hey, where are you from? I'm from Germany. Well, and he speaks multiple languages. He was also visiting Japan. I don't know if it was his first time or not. I didn't ask him if it was his first time, but he did say that he was going to be there for about 2 weeks and he was already a week in. I asked him if he knew about the main religion within Japan, and he did. And he was actually able to explain it to me and explain it to me well. And then I was just like, I'm just curious, what's the main religion in Germany? He said, well, Christianity is. And I'm like, all right. I was like, well, what particular sect? Is it Protestantism? Is it Catholicism? Is it Orthodox? It is, I don't know, Protestants are mainstream. And I was like, are you a Christian? He said, no, my parents are both Christians. They've been serving God for a long time. He's like, but I'm more of agnostic, atheist.
Mm.
And that's where the fun began.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, all right, why are you not a Christian? And one of the first things that he says was, I'm not a Christian because, I come from a wealthy background and I don't feel like God is necessary. I don't feel like I need God in my life, right? And that took me straight into the book of Matthew where it says that it's difficult. It's
Difficult
more
for a rich.
difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to enter into the eye of a needle, right? But remember, this is evangelism. So I'm not there to debate him. I'm there to win him.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what's amazing to me? I said, God is not against your riches, but wealth could become a dangerous thing when you end up into a position like yourself where you feel like you don't need God. And we got to be careful. But I reach people like yourself all the time. He's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, not only am I a pastor, but I also work in the world of finance and I deal with multimillionaires every day. And usually when I'm trying to get to the heart of the person, if I'm dealing with someone who is not wealthy, I have to meet them in their need.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, but someone who's wealthy, I have to meet them in their emptiness because they tend to struggle in that area. And you could just see his head go back like, oh my God. Like, I don't know if he even caught the reaction. And one of the things that he struggles with is purpose. And so we begin to have that conversation. I said, look, you can't get the purpose piece right if you don't get the God piece right. Because purpose is not something that you choose. Purpose is something that you discover. It's given to you. I was like, but when you don't have God in your life, then you choose purpose. I was like, but purpose changes when you change. Because today you could say my purpose is to help people, and tomorrow my purpose is to hurt them, right? It's really not an objective thing. But when you actually look in the Bible, when you begin to see that you were created to not only know God, but to make him known and to love other people as you love yourself, I was like, it changes totally the dynamic of your life. And so we was engaging in that and having conversations in that. And then he began to ask more questions. One of the questions that he asked, and I'm actually writing a free ebook on that should be coming out in a few weeks, is on the Trinity. He brought up the Trinity because in Germany, they're experiencing a lot of migration of people from the Middle East, and majority of people of the Middle East are Muslim, they're not Christian. And so when they want to attack Christian ideas, they tend to go to particular doctrines that Christians have a hard time explaining.
Yeah.
And one of them is the Trinity. If you go around churches today, more than half of the church wouldn't be able to explain it in a coherent manner.
Which is insane to me, but
yeah, because it's one of the main doctrines of our faith. And yet it's something that we don't talk about in church. It's something that we don't really teach on in church. It's just implied that people are going to go home and study. And most people don't, unfortunately. Right. So I'm answering his questions on that. I'm breaking it down. Noah was with me. He also explained it phenomenally. And Noah's 25. So him and Tim were more
contemporary.
Yeah, because I'm 40. I'm an OG. I'm unk status now.
Yeah, well, you look like an unk, bro. You don't look like an unk. That's the problem.
I'm unk status now.
You're like Steph Curry. You're the babyface assassin.
Babyface assassin, yeah. But I'm not good at Steph Curry with the 3, right? And so we explained that. And to make a long story short, God is just like, all right, I need you to get to the heart of the matter. And all of a sudden, I had this supernatural experience, and I haven't shared it with them, but I could just feel the prayers of Tim's parents on me. But not for me, for him. And then I just began to say, I said, Tim, I said, your parents love you, and I know they pray for you. And you could just see his eyes well up. I was like, how do you know that? And I said, because here you are, a kid from Germany who's an atheist in Japan with a pastor from the United States and Japan in the middle of the rain on a random day, and I'm talking to you about Jesus. I was like, you can't tell me your parents don't love you and they don't pray for you. And you could just see him just hold him back. And I got to pray for him and lead him to Christ. And hopefully, right, that seed just continues to grow. And I'm a firm believer that when God starts a good work in you, that he finishes it, So prayers for Tim. Much love to you. And I got to message him. Hopefully he's doing well because I got his information,
Mhm.
and I got Noah's information and Russell's information and Pastor Master's information and Pastor Daniel's information. Like I made friends while, I got to be used by the Lord, not for my glory, but for his. And that's what
Yeah.
it's all about.
I wanna take all that to go into a little bit deeper, but now into your heart. Because every single time we speak, I really feel your genuine passion for the lost souls. And that is something, unfortunately, I'm not experiencing across the board with my colleagues
Mm,
in ministry. And I'm not saying we all have to have equal passion, but you really, 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 really have a passion for it. And this is going to be more of an existential
mm,
question. Why? Why do you think you're so passionate about it? Aside from the love of God in you,
mhm,
is there something in your background that leads you there? And second, how is that lack of love, or how can I say this? Maybe you disagree with me. You can let me know too.
mm,
I see a lack of care to a certain extent. Churches today we've become more of a club than an outreach machine
mhm.
to like go out there and reach the souls. We become more like, if you need Jesus, come to me, but we're not going to them.
Yeah,
Um, why do you think that is?
man. I think there's so much to that. Um, Number one, man, God reached out to me first. Like it just gets me emotional thinking about it. But my family, we were lost. We were lost. We had no hope. And then God just took us and he plucked us right out. And so part of evangelism is just returning that favor. Like
What do you mean that you guys were lost?
I'm talking about, we were out in this world. Addiction was big in my family. Abuse was big in my family. Um, we were lost in a sense of our own sins. We were far away from God, far away from people. And yet God used people to reach us, to help us get clean, help us get better, to connect us with him, to give us purpose to live for something and for someone. Um,
So how do you meet God?
yeah, and so my mom had a supernatural experience where she encountered Jesus in person, um, through a vision, right? That was one way, and another way was my sister got invited to a youth service. Her best friend in school was a Christian, in middle school, who was also one of our neighbors, Elizabeth. She lived down the street. She's a sister to me now. I call her a sister, but she reached out to my sister and she was just like, "Hey, Jasmine, you want to come to church? We're having a youth service." And my sister went to church and she loved it. And um, she knew that our family needed God. So my sister was being used by the Lord to evangelize to us, to invite us to church, and by Elizabeth as well. And so, that's God using people to like draw him to you, you know, or draw him to draw us to him. So that was one way. And so, yeah, evangelism is just like, all right, Lord, you reached out to me. Please use me to reach out to others. Following the Great Commission in Matthew 28:19, where it says, go out and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? Preach to all the nations. But the other thing too, that is not only in the front of my mind, but also in the back of my mind, because I think about it all the time, is that if I really preach this and believe this, then heaven and hell they're real places, right? And if you genuinely care about people, you don't want people to go to hell. And so you have a moral obligation to go out there and to tell people about Jesus and to warn them for what's coming. Obviously, you don't want to do it in a way like, "Hey, you're going to hell if you don't accept God." Obviously, you got to be more wise in the approach. My approach is I like giving people medicine in their juice, like how I do with my son. He hates medication, but he doesn't realize he's drinking it when he's drinking his apple juice, right? That's my approach in terms of evangelism. But If you truly believe in the Bible and you believe in heaven and hell and you're a Christian, then you have a moral obligation to go out there and reach the lost. I'm also a firm believer that, because I still have family members who are not saved, that I may not be able to reach them because of the connection. But if I reach a stranger down the street, maybe they may be the catalyst or the bridge that God uses to reach a family member of mine, you know? And so that's how I think of it.
And what do you think, church? Do you agree or disagree with there is a level of church that would become more like a club, and it's more like people have to come to us and I'm gonna show you like how cool we are here instead of, and I'm not saying that's their churches,
Yeah.
there are exceptions, but generally speaking, that's what I'm perceiving. I don't know if I'm wrong, and then why you think that is.
I think as a church within the United States, we have to do a better job in evangelizing, because it could easily become a social club, right? Because we tell people like, hey, invite others, have them come here, so on and so forth. But when I'm on the altar, right, and I'm just speaking as a pastor, my job is not necessarily to convince the people in their seats that God is real, right? Because when they come in, that's the assumption that you believe in God, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I know there are unbelievers in the room, right? But the assumption is it's just like, hey, this is what we believe in. You're going to follow these core tenets while you're here. My thing is to, while I'm on this altar, is to help edify the believer and begin to chip away things that is not conducive to their lifestyle or their pursuit of holiness. That's my job, is to use the scriptures to, for lack of a better term, make us better Christians, to make us more like Christ, right? That's my function. But once I'm off that altar, at that point, it's my responsibility, just like all of our responsibilities within the church, to go out and to evangelize. And yeah, you can use church invitation as a form of evangelism. I'm not against that, because my church, God's Voice Ministries, shout out to Pastor Carlos and Cynthia Ramirez, man, we cultivated such a beautiful culture of, we probably have like 10 or 15 visitors a week, no exaggeration, which is great, right? But as a church, right, overall, we have to do a better job of evangelizing. Like my friend Pastor Masa from Japan, right? 200 member church, because he'll fill up the 2 floors, 50 and 50. He has 2 services, 11 and at 1, right? Or 9 at 11. I don't remember the times exactly, but he'll fill it up. When I was there, the next day he went to Korea to go minister. A stadium of 15,000 people in South Korea, right? Which is bananas. But then you find him in the park evangelizing, you know?
Wow.
Like
So it didn't go to his head like,
it's not about title. It's not about, oh, look at me. It's not about performance. It's about, this is my duty as a believer. That, yeah, I preached to 15,000 people. Yeah, I have a 200 member church in a country where only 1% of the population is Christian. But now I'm going to go out there in the streets, whether people recognize me or not, where people give me my props or not, where people love on me or not, where I know I could get some hate, and I'm still going to preach this gospel, right? Because this is what God called me to do. Like that kind of hunger, we need that here so desperately. But in the United States, we love comfortability. We don't like confrontation. We don't prepare. We don't study enough. So if we meet a Hebrew Israelite on Thea Street dressed like Mortal Kombat, and he's coming out with his Bible, all these verses, and we don't feel like we can prepare enough to engage, that's our fault. That's not theirs, And so God needs to light a fire within us, and I believe that He's doing that already. But yeah, for some of us, man, we got to get it going.
yeah, that's exactly what caught my attention about your trip to Japan. Because maybe it might not be your experience, but I've seen it in events here. I've seen it in my own church, my own congregation, that there could be like a little drizzle outside, a little rain, like light rain, and already that could drop your attendance like 15%, as if we are made of sugar. and people cannot be touched by water. But then you're telling me that's pouring. And when you call like, hey, because that's our culture here, like things gets postponed because of the weather. They're like, no, it's still a go. And look how many people were outside too, that had that need. Had you not gone to the park, you wouldn't have met that kid from Germany that needed that word.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many people are missing out here because of our comfortability.
Yeah, man. It reminds me of when I went to Dominican Republic to go preach at a town right outside of Hatamayor.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and this town had no roads. I'm talking about 4-year-olds riding horses. I'm not even exaggerating. Okay,
I believe you.
When they were like, "Oh, you want rabo?" and they would kill it right in front of me. Right, I remember they were like, "All right, we're gonna go to a church up a mountain." And I'm like, "Okay," and we get to the church, and there's no building.
Oh.
It was just 20 white chairs and a generator, and then the generator lost power.
Wow.
And then it began to drizzle, and nobody left. We're just there worshiping God. And it was the first time that I saw lightning with no clouds, bro. And I'm like, and I'm petrified of lightning because I almost got struck by lightning.
That's crazy.
I was probably like 4 feet away from a lightning strike.
Wow.
So it kind of created this phobia where I'm like, oh no, I can't be around lightning. Just letting people know a little secret about. But man, and I'm talking about, it took me an hour and a half to where I was from to walk to church, to preach at a place that they call a church, where it was just 20 chairs.
Yeah.
And then to walk an hour and a half back. Man, we're so spoiled here.
Yeah, and it's what
We're
you
so
said about that
spoiled here.
kid. Like we have so much abundance that it's the emptiness, the problem.
Wow.
It's not the resources. The resources have become actually it should be a tool, because I believe that there is a benefit to social media. There's a benefit to LED lights. There's a benefit of having a beautiful building. But if that becomes the essence, the center, the focal point, then we have a problem. And it has led us to be so comfortable in just waiting for people to come in that I don't remember the last time I've heard, at least in our region, because I've seen it online. I've seen courses. But I don't see it in our region, like training for folks to learn how to do street evangelism, apologetics, how to defend your faith. None of that. And that was the bread and butter when I was growing up in church in the DR, because you needed to every so often, like every Saturday, we used to go out. Like that was the fun thing to do. Let's go out and let's see if we can save some souls. And now it's more like, you know what I've encountered? I'm gonna get in trouble here. What I've encountered is folks younger than me or some contemporaries that are thinking about how to monetize ministry more than focus on how to save lost souls.
Yeah.
And that is concerned. And I believe that ministers should make a good living if they're working on the altar.
Agreed.
But when that is the focal point, I struggle, Adolfo. I struggle.
No, it's not only that, right? People sometimes they think evangelism is like, okay, I gotta go into a middle of a park or in the middle of the street and just start preaching. It's just like, no, you know what's my favorite place to evangelize? The barbershop, bro. And sometimes my barber or my main barber is Junior, and I take my kids to either Joel or my other friend Jacob to get a haircut. Sometimes I'll get my haircut from them as well. And what I love about the barbers that I go to is that because they're all believers. So sometimes they're like, oh man, I really want Adolfo to reach this person. So there are moments they're like, hey, could you change your schedule for your haircut? Instead of 2:30, could you come at 3:30? Because I really want you to talk to this person. Whether it's an atheist, a Muslim, or whomever. And just, man, that is my favorite. If God said, all right, you got to do that every Sunday versus preach out of church, I would do that. Wow. Without hesitation. I don't need the recognition. preaching on the Sunday. I love the excitement, right? I love teaching others. It feels good to be used, right? But we have this misconception that that's the only way God could use you. It's like, no, there's a plethora of options. You just got to be willing to say yes, and you got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, 100%. And then that leads me to something I shared with you that I told you I wanted to react. And the preface of this is the fact that we're not more focused on the lost souls as a church and as evangelism. And in the evangelism, it means that we have lack of empathy. And then on the other hand, we're gonna see a nuance. It was nuance to me, or a new approach when we watch Allie, Beth, right? Stuckey. She was doing one of these Jubilee 1 against 20 type of things.
She killed it. She was phenomenal.
And listen to the title. It's like one conservative Christian versus 20 liberal Christians, which that in of itself should be like a whole conversation. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And
I thought a Christian was just a Christian.
I thought so
now
too.
We're adding titles in front
now
of
we
it.
have different levels of Christianity. But I want us to listen quickly to parts of this, and then I want to react to that so we can talk about the empathy piece here.
Empathy can be toxic and lead to sin. Hey, what's your name?
I'm Paul. Nice
Paul,
to meet
another
you.
Paul. Nice
Yes,
to meet
another
you.
Paul. Let's start, if we can, on what your definition of empathy is.
Thank you for saying that. I agree. The etymology of empathy means to be in someone's feelings, whereas sympathy means to feel for someone. Compassion means with suffering, to suffer with someone. But empathy literally means to be in someone's feelings.
Do you think that when God became flesh, taking on the idea of human feelings on some level?
Not the idea of human feelings. He actually did feel human feelings.
Yeah.
He wasn't just in our feelings. He didn't just have empathy for our weakness, but he actually felt much of that weakness himself, which is amazing.
Do you believe that empathy may not be where we want to end, but empathy is definitely where we should start as Christians?
Okay.
That we as people have the abuse. If we are to love those around us in our community, we first have to be able to feel what they're feeling. And if you look at the way Christ lived, he tried his best in every opportunity to first see where they were coming from, asking questions first, making comments later. Is that a possibility that we start with empathy, but we just don't end with empathy?
Okay, I love that distinction that you said that we shouldn't end with empathy. We definitely agree on that. Here's where I would probably caveat what you said. I would say we can start with empathy. So my argument is not, which you're not saying this, but just to clarify that empathy is always toxic or always simple or always bad. I think it can lead you toward kindness. It can lead you toward love, but it doesn't have to be where we start. I think that you can love someone, sacrifice for them, be kind to them, be generous to them. Because even if I can't understand someone's circumstance or where they're coming from, God calls me to love them and to serve them. Really, empathy doesn't have to have anything to do with that.
He was asking really good questions. And I love her response that empathy could be a place where to start, but it doesn't always have to be a place where you start. Because you could start out of love, you could start out of truth, you could start from sympathy and not necessarily empathy. And the reality of the situation is that, not always going to empathize with someone because at the end of the day, right, there are just certain experiences that I haven't had yet that I can't feel with you. You understand what I'm saying? And it can be very dangerous if you make it a starting place all the time. It just lets me know that type of individual doesn't have healthy boundaries.
But what do you think she's saying? And from your experience, we cannot watch the whole video because of copyright issues.
Yeah.
What is the main premise here? If we can,
premise is that if we're not careful, empathy could be a doorway for toxicity when we give too much into it, which is true, right? You can have toxic empathy, you can have toxic sympathy, you can have toxic relationships, right? As a matter of fact, the enemy now more than ever, he's using good things and he's twisting it. And the church has been hurting because of it, because we don't know how to react, right? It's just like, all right, empathy and sympathy, those are virtues those are God qualities. And so there's no way that this could become toxic. There's no way that love could become toxic, right? And so it's just like, yes, it can. When you begin to fill it up with all of human experience and human emotions, it could take you down a path that is extremely dangerous if we're not careful. And so that's what she's attacking, and that's what she's addressing. So she's like, empathy and sympathy on its own, it's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But she's like, however, if we're not careful, it can lead us down to a bad path.
But what surprises me is that she said, because that first question I think was one of the best questions. Everybody else was like to the left. I think this guy is asking fair questions.
Yeah.
But what surprising to me, she says, empathy doesn't have to be the starting point either.
No.
We should start from the love of God. We should start from Christ. We should start because it is a commandment to love one another. And when I do that, then I can love and still tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can love and still try to restore you. Then I can love, still walk with you in your struggle, rather than affirming your sin, which is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And she says it later on, like, it's gotten so bad that empathy has become such an issue and such a problem that now we are validating sins. And we're validating crazy things that are so out of reality. And like, if a person says that they feel like they are a unicorn, now I don't go to the Bible and say, you know what, like the Bible doesn't say that we're unicorns. So, what the Bible says is that we're like, oh my God, yeah, feel your truth, believe in yourself, follow your God. You know,
I've seen where, as a pastor, I've seen where toxic empathy has led people, right? So like one particular instance is, you'll have people who become cross bearers, that it's just like, oh my God, like these issues in my family, it's on me, right? That we don't have peace. I have to carry all of these burdens, right? And so they end up becoming like a martyr at the end of the day, which is wild when you really think about it. Or you have those who enable other people's feelings because they're like, oh man, I was in their shoes once. I know how they feel.
mm-hmm.
And when I felt that way, I reacted in this way and the behavior wasn't good. So now I'm excusing their bad behavior because I was once in their shoes and I understand them.
Exactly.
Right? You have that. Another one, a person becomes a fixer, where it's just like, okay, these are the problems that you experience. I was once there. Let me help fix all of your problems now. Let me interject and begin to help you in every single area. And what ends up happening is it goes back to enablement,
mm-hmm.
right? And so, man, there's so many dangerous paths that I've seen that it could go to. Oh man, another one which is huge is what a other person feels now becomes your identity.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah,
man,
that's happening a lot right now.
Oh my God, I see that all the time, bro. And it's wild. It's wild. I'm like, no, that's just because this person failed in this area doesn't mean that you're a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Failure is an event. It's not a person, right? So it's just like, I don't know why you are now saying that this is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
such a problem right now with that.
Oh man.
So let's hear to another guy which I found interesting.
Okay.
Then let's react to that.
Wow, that was fast. That's impressive.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Shane.
Shane.
So I'm gonna kind of like lay out my argument and then tell me the issue you might have with it.
Okay, I'm ready.
Right. So my argument is empathy in and of itself cannot be sin because it is a biblical statute.
Can lead to sin. That's
I would say it can't lead to sin either.
Okay.
Because sin, I'm gonna say sin, kind of thinking of like a concupiscence kind of way here. I don't know if you're familiar with the word. Not that you're not. It's weird. But the idea is empathy in and of itself cannot be sin because it is a biblical statute.
Can lead to sin.
I would say it can't lead to sin either.
Okay.
Because sin, I'm gonna say sin, kind of thinking of like a concupiscence kind of way here. I don't know if you're familiar with the word. Not that you're not. It's weird. But the idea simply is when we affirm things that are sinful, it is by our fallen nature and desire, not by the empathy itself. Empathy, right, is the thing we use to enact care and love for people. Romans 12:15, I think it is, where it says, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Right?
So
we step into that. Just as Christ stepped into our humanity, we step into that with those people. And then from there, if we, as corrupted fallen beings, mess up in some long way, twist it to then affirm something that is sinful, that is on the sin, not on the empathy itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I understand what you're saying. I think we agree on a lot.
Yeah.
My argument is that empathy, because it is so powerful, can initiate a path to affirming sin because you feel so deeply how someone feels, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because you don't want to make them feel bad. That deep empathy that might be well-intentioned could lead you to saying something that's not true or affirming sin. So I would just disagree. I would think that the empathy can lead you there. That doesn't mean all empathy is always bad or dangerous.
Of course. My hesitation is just going to be, it's
Yeah.
You
said it's demonic. Why?
Because some of the twisting. Because the enemy does that. The devil, he'll take something and he'll twist it to where it sounds completely true, but there's a little bit. If it's 99% true and 1% a lie, it's still a lie. You understand what I mean by that? And so it's just like, for example, like love in itself can be toxic. So therefore it can be used as a doorway of toxicity. But doesn't the Bible say that the root of all evil is the love of money? Right? And so it's just like
and where does it say that empathy is a biblical statute, a biblical rule? I haven't read that in my Bible.
No, I haven't read that either.
I could be wrong.
I haven't read that either. But at the end of the day, it's just like, don't get me wrong. I do think empathy is from the Lord, right? And I know you would agree. However, the devil could still take that and use that as a doorway and pervert something in your life that should have never been perverted or twisted. And so we have to be very careful. I also like to use this concept when I talk about like faith. There's faith in and then faith for. You know, I have faith in God for my salvation. I have faith in my job that it's going to provide me the money I need for my bills. You know, like there's different categories with empathy for, in, you know, so on and so forth. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to, hopefully I'm communicating effectively. And so we got to be extremely dangerous because the devil does use good things as a doorway to lead you to bad places.
And unfortunately, like I told you, we cannot react to the entire video, but I sent it to you. And one of the main themes on that video, I'm gonna leave the link in the description, guys, so you can watch it because I think it's a masterpiece. I think she did an amazing job. Following your line of thought, your train of thought, and your logic is they use love and say, well, homosexuality is about love, is who you love, and like God is love.
Love
like,
is love.
And then like, how do you land there? And I think one of the main things, and you said it, is the enemy is using two things, in my opinion, as of late. To speak, and I was doing the Bible study last night, and I was telling people like the enemy has upgraded his tools. In the past 10, 20 years ago, it was all about dividing churches, so causing division within a congregation, so they divide. Now is more subtle. Now is distraction and distortion. Because I've been talking about Romans, like we talked before, and I was telling them, Paul wanted to make an emphasis that there are things that are of primary concerns, like things that have to do with your salvation. Let's talk about them, and let's make sure that we agree on those. But there are other secondary things that, you know, like if you eat meat and I don't, like, you want to be vegetarian, bro? Like, go ahead. And right now, the main conversations have become on secondary things, and that is a distraction because we're talking about, should you wear scare or not? Should you wear makeup or not? And if you go online about right now, all the debates are about, most of the debates are about external things and not things that have to do with salvation.
It's foolishness, man. And this could be a clip, right? One of the greatest tools that the enemy is using right now that I see a lot too is not just empathy, but sympathy.
Come on.
Right? Where it's just like, all right, empathy, you have feelings with the individual, right? You feel with them, where it's sympathy, where you feel for them. Right? And one of the ways that he uses sympathy as a weapon is that you could drown someone with so much sympathy that they receive it as love, but at the end of the day, what they're really receiving is pity. And it becomes an ocean of pity over their lives. But not only that, right? Sympathy also becomes a barrier where you drown them with so much sympathy that now they don't feel empowered to take action to get out of whatever situation that they're in. But instead, they feel that they're given the permission to remain as long as they want in this thing. It reminds me of 1 Samuel, I believe chapter 16, where God begins to speak to Samuel. He says, how long are you going to mourn over Saul? He's like, get up, go to the house of Jesse because I already chosen a king. Like essentially telling him like, hey, you can't be here anymore. Yeah. You have my permission to leave. But not only that, you have a command. I'm giving you a command to leave this depression that you're in. You can't be there no more. Right. And so we're living in such a state of drowning with emotions that I'm given permission to be depressed. Okay. And they take it as I'm given permission to now live there, to live in my depression.
Stay there.
That this is who I am now. That it's not only something that I suffer with, but now it's part of my identity. I can't live without this depression, even though I don't want to feel this way. And man, the devil is using those tactics to destroy a lot of people.
To add to that, one of the things that I've seen in that train of in that line of thinking is, and this is as old as church is that we preach a lot about and the church has been preached a lot about like it's the devil's fault, and we've moved away from personal responsibility, which is like, okay, you're going through a state of depression, but there is what the Holy Spirit wants to do in you, but there is also what you have to do to allow that work of the Holy Spirit in you to get you out of it. But now to your point, since I want to make it my identity, the Holy Spirit is outside knocking on that door and be like, hey, like I want to take you out of that depression, but like you're not letting yourself, like this is not who you are. And I wanna send a message. I've been preaching a lot about what are things that is our responsibility, because even Paul said that we've been given the mind of Christ, which means we are supposed to train ourselves to have a pattern of thinking that's aligned with the word, that's aligned with the Bible. And my Bible, what it says is that he is my joy. What Paul said is like, even when I'm in a jail, even when I'm waiting to be executed, like I'm more than conqueror. You know how hard it is to say, like, you know what, in all these things, you know, I'm more than a conqueror. And I tell you twice, rejoice. That's what we should be preaching as a church. But now we have so many motivational speakers and so many people, like even preachers telling, live your truth, which we don't have. Like the Bible is very objective. It's not subjective.
You know what else other people are missing too is a true friend. Because part of accepting personal responsibility is having those in your circle keeping you accountable. Right? That's why I love my pastor. I don't want to go to any other church. My pastor is also a good friend of mine as well. But he does something that a lot of people are allergic to, and they run from him because of it, is that he holds people accountable. Right? It's that Bible verse that iron sharpens iron. And so you need people in your life to enable you to do well, to search for holiness, to become holy, to search and become healed, right? It's just like, no, I'm not going to enable this bad behavior. I'm going to call you out on it because I love you, right?
Yeah.
That's not apathetic, but that's being truthful.
Yeah, 100%.
And so when she said, man, that's not always going to be the starting point, that's absolutely facts, because it's better off to start with love than empathy, because when you truly love someone, you're going to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need to hear the truth. Like, hey, you could be better. You could do better. Like, you need to stop slacking off. You've been wasting too much time already. Like, you need to get up and you need to do what it is that you need to do, right? Or, you know what, you consider yourself a great husband, but out of 1 to 10, you're really a 4, right? Because you neglect your wife, you neglect your children, you neglect your responsibilities at home. Like, people need others by their side to tell them that, to say, hey, man, like, what are you doing? Right. And not to condemn the person, but to really love them into the truth, into wellness. And that's what we need more than ever, man. And we're lacking that. So many people now just want to be affirmed. And all of this affirmation now is destroying people. It's destroying them. And we got to do better as a church.
I agree. Pastor Adolfo, thank you so much for this time. Guys, like, please share, please subscribe, and man, we have to be careful. And also, I hope we go back to a heart of reaching out to the lost souls.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you are encouraged that regardless of which country you may be watching this on, or you may be going to, you can be used by God even on a late honeymoon. Like, God bless your wife, because she could have been like, you're not going to no church.
Yeah, she's the MVP.
and we have to be careful, because many things have been distorted and put in this is what the Bible says, and is damaging the church. Any last thoughts? Where can people find you have an ebook on finances, man? Like, I'm excited for people to watch. I want to put the link also in the description, if you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's called The Budgeted Believer. It's a free book. It's to help people, to teach them that the importance of stewardship and generosity, and that in order to be generous, to be truly generous, you have to be a good steward. And so just leading people back to stewardship. Instagram is what I use the most. It's just my name, Adolfo Pichardo Jr., all bunched together. That's where you can find me. And you could always visit my church at God's Voice Ministries, 1370 Plainfield Street in Cranston. You're more than welcome to come. We'll receive you with open arms. Or Facebook. I also have Facebook, but I'm not really on Facebook as much. But if you ever wanted to get in contact with me because you have questions about God, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. I'm gonna still a page from, I don't know if you follow him, the director CEO, Stephen Bartlett.
No.
And he does this thing that he asks the guests to leave a question for the next guest. Since you're the first one, I don't have a question for you, but you're gonna be the starter of this tradition. What will be a question that you will leave for the next guest that I could ask?
Man, I remember I read this in Proverbs and it hit me. And I think this is a great question for the audience, is that, what does your reputation to God look like? Because I know we have a reputation amongst people, but what does your reputation to God look like? If God looked at your life, what would he say is your reputation? Does he say that you're someone that drops the ball all the time? Does he say that you're someone who's inconsistent? Or does he say that, you know what, this person's not perfect, but they work hard, they love well, right? They're good stewards. So what does your reputation to God look like? That's my question to you.
Woo! All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, share, subscribe, leave a comment. If you have any interesting question for Pastor Adolfo, I'll make sure to relate it. So maybe we can do another video answering those questions. Pastor Adolfo, once again, thank you so much.
Much love, brother. Thank you.